Tonight we're going to look at creating a stack bar graph using Tableau. There's a few things we want to do before we get started. One, we want to make sure we're using the proper data source. Right over here, you'll see the visits and labs. This is from the week 3 assignment folder. You can find that view. That's coming from the HIN 715 HbA1c database. This is a view that we created for week 3. The next piece we want to do is we're going to create two calculated fields. Now, the first field we're going to look at is number of records. A number of records is typically a Tableau default value that counts every single row or assigns a 1 to every row in that database or view or the data source itself. For some reason, that didn't happen in this case. And so what we did is I created a calculated field called number of records that does just that. Now, before we show you how I did that, if you look to the side, you'll see a little equal sign. That little equal sign means that it's a calculated field, and it's something that we did in Tableau itself. So if we right-click on that, go to Edit, you'll see that number of records, and I just assigned a 1. So now every single row will have a value of 1. This will make it easy to sum up the number of records or values that we want to look at. The last piece is creating a categorized BMI. This is something that we did with the pie chart, but what we want to do is we want to group BMI into different categories. And that criteria is listed in the assignment. Now again, you'll see that there's a little equal sign. Let's create a calculated field. What you can do is just right click somewhere in here. You'll see a sign or a little drop down for create calculated field, and then you can just plug in your equation. Now I've already built this, so what I'll do is I'm just going to click on that, edit, try that again, edit, and then you'll see this is my calculation. And to kind of break this out, we have our categorized BMI is going to be the name of the field that we created. So the field name goes right here. And the formula is a simple if-then formula, which has multivariables in it. So when you're building an if-then and you have more than just one value or two values, you have to add this else if. So this is kind of a little bit of a complicated equation. It's incredibly useful. I use it all the time. So to break this down, we have if is null, which means if BMI has a blank value or no value, then we're going to list it as unknown or unavailable. However, if BMI, the BMI value, is less than 18.5, we're going to call that underweight. If the BMI is greater or equal to 18.5 and less than or equal to 24.9, then we're going to call that normal. And there's a category for obese and overweight and morbid obesity. And so that will help us group all of our different BMI categories really quickly in Tableau. So I'm going to click OK. So now we have our three categories. We have number of records, we have our categorized BMI, and we also have our data source. And so what I did is I copied all of our instructions from the assignment right into the caption here. To view caption, just go to worksheet. You can see there's a little checkbox next to caption. If we uncheck that box, it disappears. If we check it, it shows up. So I just copied and pasted the directions directly into here. So let's get started. So the first thing you want to do is create a new worksheet. You just go up to worksheet, click new worksheet, and it'll drop one out for you. We've already done that. I added a little title here. Um, and, um, and so the next step, filter clinics, Androscoggin, Aroostook, and Cumberland. So I'm going to take our clinics, I'm going to drag it to filter, and I'm going to select Androscoggin, Aroostook, and Cumberland. Click apply, click OK. And so now our clinics have been filtered out. We can't see them yet. So what we want to do is add our clinics to rows. And there we are, Androscoggin, Aroostook, and Cumberland. Next step is to add BMI to the color category. So let's see. Category to color. I thought it sounded wrong. All right, so there we go. Drop that right into color. You'll see that the 5 different colors, those correspond with the legend over here. And in fact, I'll bring the legend over here so we can see it easier. So this tealish green is morbid obesity, dark blue is normal, obese is yellow, overweight and underweight. Now we can change those colors simply by clicking on this little arrow. There's an edit colors, and then you can go ahead and change however you'd like to. So if we wanted to change morbid obese to dark gray, we can do that obese to this kind of a brighter orange. We can do that. Or you can go kind of uh, really all sorts of different options for coloring, which is kind of handy. Click apply. One thing I want to suggest is make sure that you get colors that do stand out, and always be sensitive of colorblind audience members that would be colorblind. So there actually is, believe it or not, a option for a colorblind uh, palette, which is, where is it? Colorblind, right there. So these are the colorblind colors. Definitely something to keep in mind as we go through, as you go and you create visuals in the future. Okay, so we've added our Androscoggin, Aroostook, Cumberland. We've added our categorized BMI. The next step is to add the number of records to columns. So we're going to go down to our number of records and drop that right in the columns. You'll see that it automatically generates a sum, which is what we want. And we have three big graphs. So what this graph is telling us is that Aroostook has the most columns, or the most patients. Androscoggin has the second most patients, and then Cumberland has a third. And this is pretty small, so I'm just going to expand this out a little bit so that we can get a better look at it. Okay. The next piece we want to do is right-click on the sum of number of records up here, and do a quick table calculation. So we're going to go down to quick table calculation. It says to select the percent of total. So we're going to do percent of total. There we are. So you can see now our x-axis has changed to percentage. And this is going to show the percent of total for each clinic slash BMI category combination across the data that we're evaluating. Now the last piece we want to do is right click on the sum, and we want to do one other step to this, and we're going to compute this percent of total using the categorized BMI. Okay, so what this is going to do is going to break down. So now we have the different categories, and based on each location, and you'll see that 31.3% of Androscoggin are considered overweight. Um, this is all fake data, so this isn't necessarily true. And then 42.6 is, or zero point 0.7 is obese, and so on. So it's kind of a neat little visual. Now to add those labels to see what those actually are instead of having to hover over them, we can do the same thing over to the label category. So we can drop our number of records right over label. You'll see those are the number of records that we have. We're going to take that and do our quick table calculation. So we're going to do percent of total. And then we're going to do that final step, which is a compute using categorized BMI. And there we have it. So there's our 31.3%, 42.67%, 20.67%, and so on. One last thing we can do to that is I like to have, especially when you have numbers that are in the tens or so, I like to go to just one decimal place. So I'm just going to change the pane, so you can see the pane and the axes. I'm going to change the pane to be one decimal place. So just click on the value, go down percentage, change to one decimal place, and there we have it. And as many of you are well aware, I also like to add in a date range to really make my title more descriptive. And that's something that you can do. This would be, in my mind, would be summary of BMI percentages relative to each clinic for the years. I believe it's years 2014 to 2017. But that's something that we'd have to double check just using the lab date. And lab date, we can just do this, and that will give us that. It's 2012 to 2016. All right, so drag and drop that off. Okay, and that concludes a stack bar graph in Tableau.